Hey everybody. Today, I want to take you on a kind of different adventure. Adventure is one of my favorite words, actually. But this one's going to involve really what we talk about a lot: the mind, the absurd, and the philosophy of life itself. Today, I want to introduce you to the world of Samuel Beckett, a writer whose work didn't just challenge me as an actor, but really did transform my understanding of existence and ultimately influenced what I teach about non-duality today. So, if you didn't know, I am a trained actor, and I've been since I was a very young boy. I no longer pursue it professionally, but I still love and believe that theater is a medium, and an incredible medium, of transformation. So I encourage you to see more theater always. Anyway, if you are intrigued by the big questions of life, what it all means, and what lies beyond all the labels and the stories that we cling to, I really do think that you will find something in Beckett that is, I would say, it's truly relatable if you get under the surface. Let's start here. Let me give you some background. Long before I actually performed in Beckett's play called Endgame, I was actually really fascinated by his work. Waiting for Godot was the first play of his that I encountered. And I have to say, honestly, I wasn't entirely sure what it all meant. I didn't understand it. I didn't get it, which many people don't. But there was an intrigue. I was intrigued. There was a mystery. All I can say is that Beckett's characters, as you're watching them, they're just stuck waiting. They're circling around the same conversations. They're unable to move forward, and they can't even find any closure in the play. So you're like, well, what is this all about? But at the same time, it was very compelling. And at that time, I really couldn't put my finger on why all of this was resonating with me. I sensed there was something going on. As I always say, there's something else happening here beyond the words. There was a depth that couldn't be explained in kind of a normal, straightforward play, or a straightforward way, right? And then it came Endgame, this play that I'm going to talk about. In college, years later, I found myself cast as this character called Nagg in this intense, confining role. For you unfamiliar with Endgame, Nagg is confined in a trash can, physically, the whole time. You're in a trash can. And symbolically, you're also limited. A character whose only connection to the world is through his memories and these constant stories he tells over and over and over again. Now, there's also something I should mention. I also had to perform the whole play in French. And that was a language at that time I didn't know anything about. So as you can imagine, this wasn't just an acting part. It really required a whole new level of immersion and real focus. Every word, every pause had to be deeply looked at for me. And well, because I couldn't rely on unusual interpretations of language or patterns, right? When you're speaking French and you don't speak French, you have to really analyze it, right? So in a way, this really forced me to get closer to what Beckett was really doing. And something happened. In that process, I started to see my own beliefs about life, about reality, in this whole new way. So this wasn't just about acting. This was, as I can see now, probably the beginning of a kind of awakening that we talk about. So one of the big themes in Endgame is this sense of waiting, just like Waiting for Godot. Nagg and the other characters that are in the play, there's only 3 other characters, are on a perpetual loop of recounting old stories, clinging to fragments of their past, all in this way of filling some kind of void. It's really bleak, yes. But there is this strange cutting humor in it that I completely related to. I didn't understand why that was either, but it really got me thinking about waiting itself. How in life we often wait for things to get better, for something outside of ourselves to finally bring fulfillment. But what I began to realize through this role of Nagg, through Beckett's lens, is that waiting itself is ridiculous. It's an illusion. I mean, you see, as non-duality can show us, that there's nothing to wait for. Everything that we're looking for is already here. But the mind, the ego and the mind, whatever, doesn't like that answer. It wants us to keep in this continual search, this loop of always looking and never finding and never finding. You probably can relate to that. Then there's Beckett's concept of emptiness, right? So, I mean, this is total in his work and all of his plays. It's everywhere. And at first it can feel really heavy, this void, this emptiness. It's almost unbearable. And like Nagg, living in this emptiness on stage every night. And Beckett's void, it's just relentless. There's no escape. There's no resolution. It could easily be interpreted as despair or depressing. But something happened to me during that time. As I played Nagg, I began to see that all of this emptiness, I saw it differently. Instead of a bleak void, I started to sense this spaciousness, a kind of freedom that we talk about within this emptiness itself. So non-duality teaches us that emptiness isn't something to fear. In fact, it's the space in which all experiences arise. In Beckett's world, emptiness is haunting. But it's also this incredible invitation to go beyond the mind's need for meaning and just be. It makes me think about, there's this line in A Course in Miracles, and it teaches, and I think this connects with this. It says, words are symbols of symbols of symbols of symbols of symbols. They're only like these echoes of the truth. Beckett's characters talk a lot, but in their words, there's an emptiness. It's like they're reaching for meaning, but never quite grasp it. It's in that space between the words, in the silence, that we can begin to glimpse something beyond the language. As I say, there's something else going on here. So for me, Beckett's silence pointed towards the silence that we talk about in non-duality, the peace that comes when we stop trying to fill the void with words, with labels, with identities, with stories. Silence, in that sense, is the ground of all awareness. It's where we can finally just be. Adyashanti talks about this, the ground of non-dual awareness. So maybe that's why Beckett's work had such a huge impact on me. No, I mean, not just an actor, but later, of course, as a teacher and as a person, as a character. His characters, fragmented, isolated, often absurd. They just mirror what we all feel at some point, or maybe even all the time. We all experience that fractured self, the endless loop of memory, the feeling of waiting for something that never quite arrives. I'm sure you get it. But non-duality shows us that beneath those layers of identity, of story, of separation, there's an undivided wholeness. Wholeness. Holiness, get it? A wholeness that Beckett's characters might never touch, but that we, as the audience, can glimpse if we're open to it. So, if you've never read Beckett, if you've never watched Waiting for Godot or Endgame, I really encourage you to really check them out. They're not easy, I will tell you this, but they are profound. You can probably easily find them, or different productions, I'm sure, on YouTube, or actually read the text itself. I highly recommend it. I also wanted to mention to you that if this all resonates with you, I've decided I'm going to be sharing very soon about other writers that have influenced this character. Writers like Camus and Nietzsche. So definitely stay tuned for those, for sure. I just want to say thank you so much for watching today. Beckett taught me so much and is continually teaching me every day. But I want to say for our conversation today that what I really learned is that even in the absurd, even in that void, there is a kind of freedom. And that's something I think we can all take into our own lives. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourself.